The fourth trimester is the first 3 months after you give birth. It is a time of drastic change. It's social emotional change, your body's changing, your hormones are changing. You are learning a brand new role, and you're also meeting yourself as a parent. There is a lot going on at one time, all while trying to keep what I refer to as a potato alive and doing so with a lack of sleep. So we've set you up for a super big task and made it hard. And so it's one of the reasons why I love talking about the fourth trimester, because if we can normalize it and set those expectations, we're able to help you thrive in that.
Welcome to the Rewire for Birth podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Cindy. I'm a naturopathic doctor and birth guardian, and I couldn't be more thrilled to have you here. This podcast is all about rewiring the way we think about pregnancy, birth, and postpartum by offering a holistic perspective that empowers you to embrace your journey with confidence and strength. Each week, I'll bring you expert insights, valuable advice, and inspiring stories to help you feel prepared and empowered. We'll dive deep into the transformative experience of bringing new life into the world and explore ways to make your birthing journey truly beautiful.
Please remember that although Cindy is a naturopathic doctor, she is not your naturopathic doctor. This information is made available to you for educational and informational purposes only and should never be used as a substitute for medical advice. Please see rewireforbirth.com/disclaimer for details.
On this episode of the podcast, we have Jerusha Hull. Jerusha is a licensed clinical social worker with over 16 years of experience supporting women through pregnancy, postpartum, and the emotional complexities of early parenthood. Through her practice, Virtue Counseling, she helps new and expectant moms feel more grounded, confident, and supported during times of change. Jerusha is also the author of a newly released workbook on preparing for the fourth trimester, which debuted as a #1 new release in postpartum books. Her approach is warm, evidence-based, and practical, making her someone new moms feel comfortable trusting and working with. This podcast is so full of practical advice from Jerusha. So let's just dive right in so you can receive all the juicy nuggets of wisdom. Welcome, Jerusha Hull, to the podcast. I am so excited for what you are going to bring to this conversation, this very necessary conversation. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. And I want to start the conversation with a question that a lot of new moms might be wondering. Like, there's a fourth trimester? What do you mean?
Yes, your job was done. The fourth trimester is the first 3 months after you give birth. It is a time of drastic change. It's social emotional change, your body's changing, your hormones are changing. You are learning a brand new role, and you're also meeting yourself as a parent. There is a lot going on at one time, all while trying to keep what I refer to as a potato alive and doing so with a lack of sleep. So we've set you up for a super big task and made it hard. And so it's one of the reasons why I love talking about the fourth trimester, because if we can normalize it and set those expectations, we're able to help you thrive in that versus feeling like you're out of control.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you phrase it as a potato because you don't get a lot of feedback, right?
So I work with clients from pregnancy all the way through postpartum and on up. And that first smile is such a big deal because they're like, you just don't get anything from them. All you get is you're not doing what I need, because they're crying and they're fussy. And it's not until that like kind of half smile that parents are like, okay. And there's
Yeah.
like an audible and physical sigh that comes with it. But up until then, it's like a sack of potatoes. They're just there. They're cute, adorable. We love them. They're just there.
Yeah, like a really adorable sack of potatoes that you were so hormonally bonded to.
Yes. You worked very hard on that sack of potatoes.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank goodness we are so hormonally and biologically bonded to this new human. And I've had this conversation with so many moms. It prevents us from giving them away when it gets hard. Just
So
being like baby for sale.
take it.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to talk about, like clients will talk can vouch for this. Unfortunately, friends can also vouch for this. Is I love talking about the postpartum hormones, and one of the postpartum hormone changes that happens is that increase in oxytocin right after you have baby. If you're able to do skin to skin afterwards, that like burst that you may see with that. For some people, it's a positive emotion. We call it the bonding hormone. But what sneaky nature does to make it a bonding hormone is it heightens your anxiety. It says, hey, this thing is new to you. We need you to really notice it. We need you to really pay attention to if it's hungry, is it sleepy, is it tired? Oh, yeah, don't forget it because, again, it's a potato, it's there. And so oxytocin comes in and it turns on that bonding so that you don't sell it, so that you're like, okay, you are ours. We love you. Even though you're crying, my brain is saying, this is good. Help me get through this. And it does that by making you super aware of them.
Hyper aware, hyper vigilant, right?
Yes, to
Always
everything.
checking if it's breathing or not. And it's so common. I came across a product that it shimmers, like it's a sleep sack and it shimmers so that on the baby monitor, you can see like, oh, okay, my baby is breathing, right? Because there's so much anxiety that comes up about just doing the things that will keep this thing alive. And so you must hear about a lot of the stories, a lot of the things that moms and parents are going through in this very early stage, the fourth trimester. What are some of the things that you hear most commonly? Is it just, we're so exhausted because of the lack of sleep? Is it, I'm so worried that, maybe baby's not breathing for a certain amount of time? Like, what are the things that come up most often for you?
So we expect when you're in this fourth trimester period, these first 3 months, for you to have what we call intrusive thoughts. So an increase in these thoughts of, what about this? What about, is baby sleeping? I need to check them. I'm walking down the stairs. Is baby safe? Am I holding the handle enough? And so we don't talk about it. We don't talk about the fact that, like, oh, I'm driving and I'm worried, like, is my baby okay in the car seat? Are they at the right angle? Did I buckle them in safely? Are they crying? Are they okay? Wait, they've been sleeping for a really long time. Are they okay? And you notice how fast I just spoke there. That's how fast the thoughts are as
Mhm.
well. And we don't talk about that. We don't give moms a head up that, hey, part of that bonding, part of that attachment is going to be your brain being hyper aware of how to keep the child safe, which means you're now going to have a lot more thoughts about, what if something goes wrong? What about this? And so we expect that. We also want to highlight that because if it becomes distressing enough, we want you to come and talk to us and say, hey, I can't get past that thought. Hey, I can't do the stairs anymore. I'm terrified of doing bath time by myself. Having the thought is one thing. It's starting to impair your ability to take care of your child and yourself is a completely different thing. And so I spend a lot of time around that of like, okay, what is a typical experience that I want you to be aware of in motherhood versus when does it become problematic? So I hear about the intrusive thoughts. I also hear really well verbalized from my clients when they are describing postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, they're not giving those DSM, that diagnostic material. What they're saying to me is, I feel like my brain is broken. It's not working as fast as it used to. I can't find words. I can't follow conversations. So I just sit there and people are talking around me because I can't follow it, understand it, and then formulate a response. If we think about that, that's a very complex social interaction. And so not being able to follow that is a sign like, okay, my brain is already overtaxed. So I hear that my brain is broken. I'm overwhelmed. And moms will not say to me, oh, I'm a failure. What they'll say to me is, I should be able to do this. I should be able to do this better. And so I spend a lot of the time hearing that thought of like, well, why can't I do this better? I can do hard things. This is just another hard thing. We're having hormone changes. Your body's physically recovering. You're sleep deprived. You've not taken care of a baby before, or you've not taken care of a baby and a toddler before. Like, it's ever evolving, and you're doing it all while getting to understand your relationship to what you think a mom is and how you want to be as a mom. And you're seeing it all through this brand new filter. So one of the other things that I'll hear is, well, I'm thinking about my parents differently. I'm thinking about my friends who are parents differently and like what they went through. And you're starting to process, like, what does this mean? How do I show up for my baby? What is it like in my relationship? How do I view myself? So there's a lot of complex things happening all at once.
Yeah, like when they say this is another hard thing, it's
Mhm.
an understatement, right? It's not
Yes.
like another hard job or like another hard task. It is so multifaceted and so visceral, right? Like on all the layers from a physical, mental, emotional, energetic, spiritual, all of these layers have just been cracked open. And unfortunately, in the especially Western society, we don't have a lot of infrastructure, like support systems
Mhm.
to hold the mother, to hold the new parents in the new version that they're finding themselves in. And so there aren't these, like we're used to having rituals when we were in villages. We're used to being held by our elders and the women around us who understood the process. We had context, we had stories, we had seen it on since childhood. We had seen our aunts and our cousins and everyone have babies. And so it was such an ingrained part of our nervous system to understand it.
Mhm.
And then so often, I assume you're seeing often the sequelae, like the repercussions of the birth experience as well,
Mhm.
right?
And
Whether it was positive or negative or neutral.
And one of the things that I wanted to piggyback on what we were just previously saying is all of that is in a typical, healthy, ideal, whatever you wanted, nothing scary happened, I'm good birth. Like all of that complex stuff that we're talking about is not an abnormal experience, is not a quote unquote difficult or hard experience. That's just normal and to be expected. Sometimes we add upon that loss, we add upon that a NICU stay, we add upon that being isolated from family and friends, COVID. We add all of this cultural distress that we're experiencing while the demands of all that we just discussed don't change.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I love about my book and love about the work that I do with clients is I'm a huge belief in normalization and information is power. If I can, exactly what you said, you used to see it modeled, you used to see it throughout cultural, through your family and your community. There were some things that you were like, oh, okay, that happens. And then the person is okay. You had that complete story. Here we don't necessarily have that. And so what my book does is it goes through and it talks about this is what's expected. This is the typical range. This is the range at which I want you to become concerned and get extra additional support on top of the support that we're going to get for the just normal hard stuff.
Hmm.
It, trying to fill that gap of if we can empower you to know what's changing in your body, why it's changing, because there are some hormonal changes that happen right after you give birth that are designed, systematically designed for a purpose that are scary if we don't understand them. We have a drop in our progesterone, which is our ability to manage anxiety at the same time that that oxytocin that we talked about is increasing. So we took your ability to manage anxiety and tanked it at the same time that we increased your anxiety. Like, thanks, Mother Nature. Like,
Hmm.
that's a great scenario. But understanding that is super empowering, especially for my clients who have had a history of anxiety, because otherwise it feels like the initial spiral. It feels like, oh, it's starting. But
Hmm.
if you can understand this is designed this way on purpose, like my hormone and progesterone has to re-level. It was the highest it's ever been during pregnancy, and it's going back to its typical level. My oxytocin is increasing for milk production, as well as helping me notice my child. That is a lot less scary than the thought of, oh my gosh, my panic attacks are starting already.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Just that little tidbit of information can give someone at least a roadmap of like, okay, I know what's happening. I know why it's happening. And therefore it's just a little bit less scary.
Mhm.
It
Well,
won't
and it's
change the sensations though. You're still going
no,
to feel it. Yeah.
yes. Well, and it's that anecdotal stuff too that was passed down through generations that may not be passed down now. Of like, oh, this is normal. You expect this. It's okay. I went through this. And so trying to fill that gap for those who don't have an expansive support system of like, okay, where is the model in this? And one of the things I talk about in my book is there's 4 different types of support, and it's helping you develop this web of care. And so there's an informational support. Who is that person who's going to go to advice for guidance, for answers? And so being able to tangibly think about, I need to identify someone with that talent who makes me feel safe, who can do that for me. The instrumental support, who is the person who is going to help with task and logistics? And you had people fill these roles previously. The emotional, who's going to be a listening ear, a warm heart, and that affirmational, like who's going to validate that what I'm going through is real and is going to be okay, that there's an okay ending. And so I love helping clients think through the support they need for their web of care in those 4 different categories because it helps us make sure their needs are getting met. It also helps them be more successful in getting their needs met because if someone is good or confident in that type of help, they're more likely to respond to your request. Like I was working with a client before and their dad really wanted to be involved, but was like, I don't know anything about pregnancy. I don't know anything about, I'm not good with them. And her and I had covered this in a session, and she came back the next session. She's like, I shared that with my dad. It's like, oh, great. Like, what was the feedback? He's my instrumental. He heard that description. He was like, oh, I can wash your dishes. I can take the dog for a walk. If you like tell me what you want on your grocery order, I can go get the groceries. Like he was able to come up with his own list of ways to support her. And she's more likely to ask for that because he's given that okay. They've both identified, like, oh, yeah, I can do this. Just
Mhm.
like someone who, if you go to for advice and you feel better afterwards, you're going to go back to them for advice.
Mhm.
And so it helps them be more successful and confident in seeking that support versus having in that hard moment go, who do I call for this? Who's going to help with this? Oh, no, I don't want to bother anybody. Okay, let me load up the baby and I'll go do the dog walk. And da, da, da. It allows us to kind of go, oh, so and so said they would help with this. Let me ask.
Yeah. And a lot of these people are more than happy to. Like this father sounded like he had enthusiasm and he was just
Yes.
looking for ways to help. Bringing, pulling in people and cultivating a community around you of people, especially who are going to be enthusiastic. And, it's not going to feel like a burden to them. It's not going to make you feel like you're asking too much of someone. It's so helpful. This is something that I'm sure you talk to your clients with when they're still pregnant so that
Mhm.
they're not blindsided, because I think so many women because we get so much care in pregnancy, so we get asked so many questions, all the testing, and then we have this birth experience no matter how it goes, and for a lot of us we assume that's the peak, and then we go home and that's when the real work starts. And so many of us are blindsided by what we experience just because either we weren't prepared, we were not informed about it. And so this is definitely something that while you're still pregnant to be thinking of, instead of still do the birth plan, it's super
Yes.
important, but the postpartum plan is so crucial to help you heal from the birth and also to cultivate that web of support that you're talking about. It's such a tricky topic because our culture really idealizes individualism, right? Like we assume we should be able to do it all on our
Mhm.
own with a smile on our face. And when we ask for help, it means weakness. And it could not be anything but the opposite,
Mhm.
right? Like you benefit, your baby benefits, your whole family benefits when you get support.
And there are multiple studies that show that those who are able to seek support are more successful in postpartum. So we may say that we idolize individualism and being able to do this all on my own, but in reality, our data shows that those who are able to access support of any kind and are willing to do so are the ones that are successful. So there's often this illusion of they're doing it alone, but when we really dig into it, like a client today was like, "Yeah, I was at a girls trip, and when I talked to everybody, I was shocked about the other people who were dealing with depression, anxiety, who were accessing this type of support and this and this." But when we dig into it, most successful people have some form of support. And I think one of the other issues with support, particularly in an American community, is that we don't live near family. We don't have access to people. Everyone's working, everyone's busy. And so, how do we actually create that? How do we replace support that's no longer a given? And that's the other reason behind this is like, how do we help you feel successful in asking? How do we help you feel like this is a sign of strength versus, I'm failing? And one of the ways that we do that is if we set that expectation early that I am going to ask for help, I'm going to receive help, I'm going to do all these things to protect myself and help me be successful, then you're more likely to do that. I love like when I've worked with a client through pregnancy and oftentimes before pregnancy, and we'll work through pregnancy and we'll do all this education and planning for postpartum. And typically they'll get into postpartum and they're good. Like there'll be rough patches, but they know what to do. We check in, we go through it. And it's so funny to watch them be like, I feel like I'm being successful in this. I thought it was going to be so much harder. And I'm like, that's because it works. When we put the time in and we do this plan and we think of what our needs are and we think about what can we drop, like what is not actually important to me because I cannot do everything that I did before and add on keeping something alive, you do become successful. So being able to look at that and say, no, actually the people who do it alone are not, they have higher depression levels, higher anxiety levels, more sense of overwhelm. They don't have as good of a relationship with their child because they're stressed. And so one of the most protective things you can do, because your mental health impacts your child, is identify support and create it. And I am all about creative support. When I think about my support system, yes, it's my friends. Love them. They're awesome. Love them family. But it's also the daycare at my gym. I love them.
They're
Like,
amazing.
they're amazing. My kids need that break from me at times. I need a break from my kids. And that hour that I work out in class is fantastic. And I come back and I'm rejuvenated. My local library, oh my gosh, we could not have gotten through toddler years without story time and having that access to socialization for them and that break and the community with other moms. I think about food delivery, like being able to click, yes, please deliver my groceries versus lugging in. I don't know why, but putting a child into a car seat and taking them back out and going and doing something and coming, putting them back in, taking them back out.
Let alone that there's no room in the
Yeah.
grocery cart
Yeah.
when you put a car seat in there.
Needed. No. And not every kid likes to be carried. And like if you're managing more than one, ugh. I was talking with another parent the other day and we were like, okay, pinnacle of parenting, have you ever left a grocery cart because it was just too much? Like,
Yep.
have you walked out? Yes. And so being able to order my groceries is a support system. And so even those who are single parents by choice or don't have strong ties with your family of origin, like let's think creatively. Where can we get support for you? Is it your therapist? Like I'm so happy when my clients are like, yeah, you're on the web of care. I'm like, yes. Like that's the goal because it's one of those validation and affirmational and guidance places of, okay, it's not just your job to be aware of what the risk factors are and how you're doing. You come in and if I've worked with you, I know your baseline. It's my job too. And getting to share any job with someone else relieves the pressure off of you.
Absolutely. Because I think there's a lot of pressure to educate ourselves so
Mhm.
much. Like you have to become almost an expert going
Yes.
into this experience, and it's just another to do, right? So if you can pull in those professionals that this is their line of work, right? Like they are ready to help you and they're educated and they understand it, it totally does relieve the pressure. Even for me, like I'm educated, I'm a naturopathic doctor. I took, there were units like modules part of our curriculum for maternal and newborn care, and I still felt like I had to learn so much going in. So it was such a relief when I was like, okay, the midwives know, they get it, they've seen this, they understand it. At least it's just lifting some of that weight off of my shoulders. So helpful.
Well, and you talk about the fact of being a professional and like we have special units of knowledge related to this. I talk with my clients about the fact that like I have two girls with definitely after my first, I had postpartum anxiety. this is my world. I talk about this every single day. I will talk your ear off about it. But if you had asked me when I was holding my firstborn, do you have postpartum anxiety? My answer would have been, no, I just need to do better. And Lord behold, I don't need to do better. I'd opened my practice, which is now 8 years old, just like my daughter's about to be. I was a professor at George Mason University. Like I was a first time mom. I was doing the things. I did not need to do better. I had anxiety. And so even talking to my clients about I missed it. And that's one of the things that I actually do love about working with anxiety is it's so tricky. It comes in as a fact. It makes you think that this feeling that you have is truth. No, you're right. You do need to just do better. If you can get her sleep better, if you can just grade papers a little bit faster, if you can do blank. Oh, don't forget to make times for friends. Don't forget to do blah, blah. Oh, you should go work out. All those things. That's anxiety, spitting that up. But it felt factual. And that's what clients often say to me. It's like, I should just do better. And so being able to work with individuals on how do we recognize that sooner? How do we break apart from that and go, wait, that might be an anxious thought versus reality.
Mhm. That is so tricky.
Mhm.
So tricky just because of the comparison that we have, especially if we're spending any time on social media in the early days. You compare to like the smiling photos of all these other moms and parents, right? And it just feels like you're the only one who
Mhm.
just isn't able to do it the way that you want to do it. So,
Mhm.
super helpful to have that moment of pause when you're like, okay, wait a second. I might have had this thought, but it might not be true. It might not be reality. And so pulling in evidence for the contrary or just leaning on your support system
Mhm.
in that moment. I'd love to talk about the distinction between the baby blues and postpartum depression because there are levels to it, right? And with the baby blues, what's typically seen is that it comes and then it kind of lifts on its own. And so, what would you say to the mom who is feeling low, isn't sure? Like, is this just the baby blues? Do I just give it time? Do I just lean on my support? Or is this something a little bit deeper that I need addressed? If you're listening to this podcast, you're already taking radical responsibility for the birth experience you truly desire. The problem is, most birth preparation still focuses on information instead of preparing your nervous system for the intensity of birth itself. Because when intensity rises, your body doesn't follow a plan, it follows what's already wired. Think about a ski hill or a snowboarding hill in my case. Once the tracks are carved into the snow, your skis or snowboard almost automatically follow them, even if you're trying to go a different way. Your nervous system works the same way. If your system is wired for tension, fear, or bracing, even at the subconscious level, that's the track your body will follow in birth. Not because something is wrong, but because that's what's familiar. Rewire for Birth helps you lay down new tracks. Through a neurophysiology informed approach, you're training your body mind to create pathways of safety, regulation, and trust so that when intensity builds, your system naturally follows those instead. Inside the program, you'll learn how to rewire your nervous system for birth, release stored fear and conditioning, especially that good girl conditioning, understand how birth unfolds in your body so you can work with it instead of against it, and stay connected to yourself, to your voice, and your power when it matters most. Because birth leaves a lasting imprint. And when that imprint is rooted in love, safety, and trust, it shapes how you enter motherhood and how your family grows. If you're preparing for birth and want to create new tracks, not rely on old ones, you can learn more at rewireforbirth.com or simply click the link in the show notes. I'll see you in there, mama.
So with baby blues, we're typically looking at the first 2 weeks of postpartum. What I tell my clients is that typically peaks between days 7 and 10. We're looking at you feeling irritable. We're looking at you possibly crying and not knowing why, increased anxiety, where it's not outside of the realm of normal for bonding with your child to feel awkward and weird. Because again, it's a potato. And so thinking about, okay, I'm a little bit irritable. I may be crying. I may feel down. It's also very common for moms to express to me, I feel like I made a mistake. This was not, I should not have done this. Even though they can say, on the other hand, I really love this baby. I worked really hard for this baby. oh my gosh, this was a mistake. That is the typical baby blues period. It peaks between days 7 and 10 and should start to decline by day 14. So what I tell my clients is we're looking at that first 2-week period. We expect that. We want to increase our supports during that 2-week period. What is the pressure we could take off of you? When we're feeling those things, can you have someone else remind you that you're feeling these things and that, oh yeah, remember Jerusha said that might be hormonal. That might be baby blues. Have you eaten? Have you slept? Have you showered? Have you drank water? Have you taken a breath? If after day 14, you were still experiencing that and it's an increase in intensity, I'm still crying randomly. I don't feel like I have control over my emotions. I'm getting irritable over things that I shouldn't or I haven't before. I find it hard to concentrate. I can't watch TV. I can't read. I can't follow the conversations. I'm withdrawing from social situations, and it's not getting any easier to like my child. That's the line for me. And so I typically have my clients who have worked with me during pregnancy check in by the 4-week mark. That's before the typical 6-week mark for OBs because I can start to see the early glimmers of postpartum anxiety and depression at that visit. They should be out of the 2-week baby blues window. And if they're still citing some increase in symptomology or, I'm feeling anxious, I'm still not able to sleep, the thoughts are getting harder. I feel tension in my chest. I'm really like, I can't do bath time alone. Whatever it is, I'm able to see at that 4-week mark, like, okay, let's increase interventions. Let's look at your support. Let's look at me. How frequently can we get you in? And I run what I call a baby friendly practice, which means that as long as your child can't repeat your session, they are welcome. So clients put them in the stroller, pop in headbuds, put me in there. As long as they feel comfortable talking, I'm happy. They're rocking in session. So often like I rock in session because otherwise I get dizzy. They're laying on the floor with the phone popped up and baby's doing tummy time. We do all those things. They're nursing, they're pumping, they're getting bottles ready so that they have that access to support. It's that timeline. That's the easiest thing to tell clients to remember is that 7 to 10 day peak. You should feel better by day 14 if you're not reach out. And again, remembering that hormonal change because often I will have clients who have an anxiety history reach out around day 6 and be like, I feel really anxious or like birth didn't go the way I wanted it to. Can I see you earlier? And I always say yes. I'm like, here's my openings. Also remember what we talked about. And typically what happens is I don't get a response. And then around day like 14, like, oh yeah, it did start to go down.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And so remembering that timeline. So
Mm.
that's 7 to 10 days, the 2 weeks, and then around the 4-week mark as an early check-in.
Yeah, that is so helpful for the listeners, especially if you're still pregnant right now, just to be aware of that timeline, to give yourself grace, just how empowering just to know, like I need support, but I know in 7 days we're going to reassess and see how things go.
Well, and the way that my book is written and the way that my practice works is I bring in the support system toward the end and teach them everything that I've taught the client. And so I said in there quickly, telling somebody so they can remind them. And so when I have the support system come in, we talk about that. And several clients have reported, yeah, it was really helpful. I forgot and just thought I was spiraling. And they're like, no, 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 remember, we said this. We knew this. Jerusha told us this was going to happen, which always cracks me up when partners are like, no, no. And then the book is also set up to not just be used by the pregnant individual, but it's meant to be used by them and their support system. Or I was at a baby expo in November and lots of grandparents were buying them. And like, I want to help. I want to do this the right way. Um, and it has tools for how to be the support and also how to recognize when your loved one is crossing that line from like baby blues to postpartum depression, and then has language for how to address it with them.
That is so brilliant because, like I was saying before, so much pressure on the pregnant person to be educated and to educate
Mhm.
themselves. But if really like the people around them are the ones who need the education on how to support them, right? And so that is so brilliant.
Well, the support system is so important because, like, my very professional, very maternal mental health trained brain internally was like, nope, just do better. Whereas if I had spoken aloud my thoughts to any of my friends who were mothers, they would be like, sorry, what? And in fact, like I have a story that I love sharing with clients with my firstborn daughter. I tried to take her to Target by myself for the very first time. Could not get us out of the house. Got poor little girl into the car seat. She was screaming and crying. And I like eventually gave up and like I'm feeding her and putting her down for a nap. And I'm like crying. She's maybe 6 weeks old. She's like tiny. And I'm texting my friend who is got two boys older than my daughter. And I'm just like, I can't failure. Like, I couldn't even do it. I go to Target. Like, why can't I do this? And in her like infinite knowledge, she goes, you don't do this. I'm like, what are you talking about? I go to Target. She's like, you have never ever done this before. You have never packed up that baby all by yourself, put them in the car, and driven to Target. And
True.
having her be able to say that of like, oh, you're right. Like this is completely different than what I do of like, I'm gonna go get in the car and go. No planning, no 800 bags. Hearing it from that other person validated, like made it real. Whereas if you're just trying to tell yourself, often your brain can discount that. So
Mm,
having your support person know that and be able to go, hey, yeah, you are crying a lot, but until we get to day 14, let's not worry and stress. Let's take care of you. But also, this might be typical.
mhm. Yeah. That's so funny. I had the same experience with Costco.
I don't know if I would have like vouched for Costco. That's intense. Go to it.
Right? Yeah. I was all excited. No, it did not happen. Thank
No.
God it did not happen, right? Because Costco without a baby is intense.
It's intense. Yeah, it's with a 7 and a 5-year-old now, it's still intense.
Yeah, but so true. Having those people in your support network around you just to mirror back what's actually happening here. And so that you can again have that moment of pause of like, oh yeah, like this isn't the same as when I was just solo and I could do like go and come and go as I please, right? I'm curious if you see a correlation between how the birth experience went and how that impacts the postpartum period from a mental health perspective.
So for the moms out there who are wondering, no, just because you have a bad birth, and I use that in quotations, or a birth that the only bad birth is where you felt unsafe. Let me
Mhm.
like clarify that. Like
Yes.
whatever way you get baby here, we're proud. We're
Yeah.
happy baby's here. We're not happy if you felt unsafe. Like,
Yeah.
don't like that. No matter what happens in there, that does not mean that your postpartum experience has to be negative, has to be ruled by that. Do we process that? Absolutely. Do we validate your experience and what your rights were and how you should have been cared for in that moment and that it was scary? Absolutely. And we should. And please, if you had anything where you felt unsafe or you felt your baby was unsafe, please do talk to a professional. You do not have to carry that. It does not matter if you and baby are safe. It matters if you felt that you or baby were unsafe. That's all I need for a trauma experience. And so remembering that too, because some people will be out there like, oh, we're fine. So it doesn't really meet threshold. Like, oh, I'm being dramatic. No, you're not. If you felt unsafe, if you felt baby was unsafe, and that goes for support too. If anytime you felt like your birthing individual was unsafe, yeah, that's enough for us to talk about that. So I don't think that there is a direct correlation. I think that there is a higher correlation, and I think most research backs this up, of those with perfectionist tendencies of like it has and rigidity. It has to go like this. It has to do this. I have to do this. And so one of the things we talk about a lot is the protection of flexibility.
Mm.
And what if I have to drop something? What do I choose to drop? And so, like, even in that birth planning process, like, okay, like, if things have to be dropped in this, what can we go ahead and say? How do we go ahead and accept that and work through that? So if it happens in the moment, you're okay and able to recover. The reason that the perfectionism and rigidity, I think, is a bit more of a correlation is the fact that if you're also rigid and have those high expectations of yourself postpartum, you're not going to meet those. You're going to feel like a failure. You're setting yourself up to feel like failure. And so going ahead and setting into that of, no, I will have flexibility. I would love to, one of the biggest ones in my practice that I hear a ton is like, I would love to breastfeed. Wonderful. Absolutely. If we can have that experience, let's protect that. Let's advocate that. Huge love lactation consultants, recommend all the time. Absolutely for success and for feeding strategies. But also, if it's causing distress and like baby's weight's going down, we want that protective flexibility to like, okay, do I pump? Okay, well, do I have formula? And we talk about even identifying a formula while you're pregnant and having it in the home. Because maybe you throw it away because you never used it, or you give it to a friend, or you are in that moment where you needed that. My second was born the day DC shut down for COVID. It was rough. She's a beautiful, wonderful, like spunky little 5, about to be 6-year-old now. But she had the bilirubin, and I can't think of it, jaundice.
Mhm.
And COVID, they were like, you need to get that down, or she's going to NICU without you. And one of the most protective factors is that I already had the formula on hand. I had it. I didn't need to go figure out how to go and find it. I was able to just like grab that bottle, give it to her because that's what she needed. And for me, it was like, okay, if I have to drop something, is it my baby going to NICU? Because I'm really not having any flexibility around my breastfeeding? Or is it, I'm going to give her formula because priority is you stay with me, kiddo.
Mhm.
And so we did that. And I share that because, like, if you have access to it and you've already thought through some of that, you're more likely to use it.
Mhm.
And we want you to use it to help you get to the next spot.
Yeah.
Girlfriend's fine. She did not go into NICU. Thankfully, that formula helped us out. And also realizing there's not all good, all bad of things. Breastfeeding's great, wonderful. She breastfed, but girlfriend also needed that formula.
Yeah.
And so how do we help you have that flexibility, and where might we expect it to be really hard for you? And so going ahead and starting those conversations early on. But yeah, no correlation between a difficult or traumatic birth and difficult or traumatic postpartum
Okay. From a mental health perspective.
from a mental health perspective. No.
Okay. I think it's helpful to have, because you said, like, do we process that? Absolutely. I think it's
Yes.
helpful to have someone in your support network who can help you process whatever may have happened in the birth experience, whether it was, it went exactly as you wanted it to or not, because it is an intense experience inherently.
Mhm.
Like I experienced what I consider an empowering birth experience. And yet it was so intense.
Mhm.
I needed to process it. Like I needed time. So I think just having someone, maybe a part of your postpartum plan is to just have someone that you feel comfortable enough to talk through however that experience went. And I think a lot of new moms want to talk about it, and we don't
Yes.
often have an outlet. It's just like this crazy thing that just happened to you, right? And if we don't have just the outlet of telling
Mhm.
that story and you're just keeping it in, or whatever the case might be, I just think it's helpful to put that in your postpartum plan.
Mhm. We do a lot of during that 4-week session talking through the birth, and it's important because there's a lot that's happening to you at one time. And I very famously, during the birth of my second daughter, looked at my doula and went, "What just happened?" And she's like, "You had a baby." Second birth. Not for because so much is happening all at once. And so knowing that, and knowing that it's good to process it, and I often encourage, my clients with their partner or whoever was there, their doula, to swap stories
Mm.
of like, "What did you notice? What did you see? What did it feel like for you?" And it helps to create that more complete picture.
Yeah, because what your perception is can be radically different than what your
Yes.
partner or your doula's or your other caregiver's perception is. So true.
Yeah.
So true. Because you go to a different dimension almost, right?
Yes.
You're not here. You're here, but you're not here.
And your body does a lot of things automatically by design. And so being able to be like, "Oh, yeah, I noticed that," or, "Oh, that was my perception." Like, "Okay, I was just there."
Yeah.
Sometimes what I say to clients, I'm like, "Sometimes you're just there in it. You're just allowing your body to do what it needs to do."
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to go into the area of the relationship, the partnership, because I think this is something that, again, can really blindside us, right?
Mm,
Like you might be in a very supportive partnership, you might feel very held by the other person, but neither of you, especially for your first, neither of you have gone through this intense change, and
mhm,
it radically changes every aspect of the way that you live. Nothing is the same after
mhm,
you invite a sack of potatoes into your life, right?
mhm.
And so I'm curious what you hear from the clients that you work with. I'm also curious about some strategies. I assume just kind of being aware that there's going to
Mhm.
be a big change is helpful, but what do you find helpful for the people that you're working with?
One of the things I hear the most is that they miss their partner.
Hmm.
They miss the easy conversations, the not needing to schedule, the emotional as well as like physical intimacy, but they just miss their person. And so one of the things we work on is like, how do we protect that? And instead of like expecting to be able to take a long date night, how do we do 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there? And so one of the conversations that I have with them is often, how do we get the biggest bang for your buck? So what makes your partner feel the most cared for? What is the thing that you guys want to prioritize? Is it talking? Is it sitting next to the couch in silence, but like touching? Is it doing things for others? And I'll have them talk about love languages to give them an idea of like, okay, what feels good for your partner? If you're tired, where are you going to spend the very limited energy that you have? We talk about expectations, expectations around the house. What chores are we really ready to drop? Like, okay, we both agree that's not important to us. We both really care about this, or, I stress out when the kitchen's dirty, or I stress out if our living area is dirty. Doing those and spending that limited time getting that high value thing done so that you're not wasting time and have the ability to have some time with each other. In the book, I talk about like 10 different ways under 10 minutes to show your partner love. And I think that I love that concept because 10 minutes, like we're not asking for big amounts of time. And I think when we introduce that potato into our life, we have to transform it from this, I can go to dinner, I can go grab a cup of coffee with you, we can spontaneously do this too. How do I start fitting this in little bitty bites to keep us going till we can get to that point? The Gottmans have a book, and in the book, I can't remember if it's "And Three Makes Baby." Um, I will have to like give you the correct name for their book. I'm so sorry, Dr. John and Julie Gottman. But what they do is they describe it as we're in the soup. We're in the soup together. We are in this. And by just normalizing the fact that there is a soup to begin with, full of stress and like all the household and the increase in the mental load, couples who recognize that they are in that soup and they are in that soup together do better. Couples who don't recognize that and start to pull away because they think, oh, this is something wrong with us versus, oh, when we had a baby, we got thrown in a soup. They're the ones that struggle. We're not made to have a baby together. We can't handle stress. We can't handle communication versus, oh, this is hard because it's hard, not necessarily because there's something wrong with us. Maybe, yes, we do need to change our communication. Maybe, yes, we do need to change our expectations, but we can do that
Together, because we're in the soup
together.
together. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
With our potato.
Yeah, yeah. It's potato soup.
Yeah, exactly.
It reminds me of that analogy of the glass balls and the rubber balls,
Yes, I talk about that
and
in my book.
yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
perfect, right? The rubber balls can be dropped, and
Mhm.
that's fine, but the glass balls are the things that can't be dropped, right? And so
You'll never get them
really
back.
exactly, yeah. So really putting your or just prioritizing those
Mhm.
areas of your life and talking about the relationship, I think it's important to remember that the support system isn't just for the mom and the healing and the baby bonding. It's also for the relationship. It's super protective for the relationship because when all the expectations are for the partner now to
Mhm.
carry the load, to be able to take care of the mom or the birthing person, it's a lot of pressure, and they've also never done this, and they also need
Mhm.
their own support system. And so when the community, the village, whoever that might be, the hired professionals come in to fill in those gaps, it is so nourishing and protective for the whole family unit. Yeah, I
We
just
have a
really wanted to emphasize that.
Yeah, we have a term for that for the support system or the non-birthing partner, and it's delegitimized distress. Their response and their adjustment to baby is viewed as not as legitimate because I didn't give birth, I wasn't pregnant, this isn't happening to me. But in fact, you're going through a role change as well. You're going through possibly trying to figure out how to be the non-birthing individual in this baby's life without your own role model. How do I continue with the pressure of all the like stuff that existed before while my partner's kind of out of whack for a little bit, like can't fully take it on all the way. And also I'm now expected to be there 100% emotional, be educated enough to recognize this and support them. And so we do refer to it. There's a study that came out in that delegitimize distress and going to the place of, okay, let's legitimize that. Like that is, we want to support the non-birthing individual. And by supporting the birthing individual, we do because we're educating, we're expanding that web of care, we're taking the pressure off of them. And studies have shown if we can reduce mental health distress in the birthing individual, we also reduce it in the non-birthing individual.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so connected and so
Mhm.
intertwined. It's like it's the household. It's like the nervous
Yes,
system of the whole household, right? And
yes.
every single person who's there is a part of this and needs their own form of support. Before we wrap up, Jerusha, I'd love to talk about a topic that is quite difficult to talk
Mhm.
about. Sometimes there is loss that is experienced. And even though it's a very difficult topic to discuss, I think it is important just to mention how a partnership, how a mother can move through that very difficult, challenging experiences and some of the supports that they can pull on.
Mhm. My practice specializes in particular in pregnancy after loss. So a large portion of my clientele has experienced some form of loss, and then we're managing pregnancy after that. And I often do get them during the actual loss as well. And so how do we process this? How do we support this? And giving them that space to grieve. And when we're talking about this delegitimized distress of the non-birthing individual, when we look at grief studies, it's often the same thing when we're looking at pregnancy or infant loss. Society doesn't have as many rituals and culturals around pregnancy loss. So how do we legitimize this? How do I feel that I have a right to grieve in this way? And the same for stillbirth and infant loss. And so, really being in a space where you have been granted that right to grieve in the way that you need to grieve for as long as you need to grieve in a supportive environment. So, if that's through a clinician, if that's through a support group, but knowing that if you deem it a loss, and I always ask, well, okay, when did you like, was it at what phase? Some of my fertility clients, we talk about is a transfer that didn't become successful, is that considered a loss or not? And it's different for each person. So I always ask, where do you consider it a loss at what point? And no matter where they put it on that little ticky calendar, it's a loss and it's legitimized and we will grieve it and we will process it. So I think one of the, if I could say only one thing, it'd be that it's valid and it's important that you experience that grief and know that it does get better. It does change and become part of your story, but it also does morph and it isn't the suffocation that it is at the initial.
Mm, yeah. You know, that old adage of it takes time, like time will heal all wounds. Yes and no, right?
Mhm,
It does. But you also have to give yourself that space to grieve
mhm,
the
mhm,
experience. I heard recently a mother describe life after a loss, and she said that people think that joy and grief take turns.
mhm,
But what really happens is that they are forever braided together. So it's joy, love, and grief braided together. So like joy, you'll experience real joy, right? And that's because you still have love in your life and you experience real deep grief because you loved that baby. But they're always going to be intertwined. And that's how you experience life afterwards. And just think it's a perfect description, right? And everyone is going to experience it differently, but giving yourself permission to experience that grief for as long as you need to experience it, because we put such artificial timelines on how
yeah.
long you're allowed to grieve in our society. And yeah, it can be really liberating, empowering, and freeing just to get rid of that timeline.
Mhm.
Yeah.
A client the other day talking about her recent experience, and she had said something along the lines of, well, I felt happy in that moment. She's a little bit ways out from the initial loss. And I recognize it as happy because I have been happy before. Am I still grieving? Am I still sad? Yes. She's like, it's still very intense, but I recognized it. And I thought that that was so beautiful. And the fact that there's hope in that at one point after a loss, you will too recognize happiness again.
Hmm. Yeah. She's like, I remember that emotion.
Mhm. Oh, yeah. And
Yeah.
that, like, kind of moment, oh, I can feel it again, even if it was brief in that moment. Oh, I did recognize that. I do know what that is. I
Yeah.
am capable.
Yeah. Yeah. Capable, resilient. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Drusha, this conversation has been, I think, just so necessary. And I'm so glad we were able to connect in this way. And I do want listeners to know that we've mentioned the fourth trimester workbook a few times. So I really want them to know that that is a resource available to them. But also, you see clients in person and virtually, correct?
I see clients virtually in Texas, Florida, DC, Maryland, Virginia, New Jersey, and Vermont. And
Okay.
I do have access to in person in New Jersey.
Okay, lovely. So, really encouraging the listeners to access your resource. We'll
Mhm.
put your website in the show notes as well so they can access you there. Instagram, is that a good place for people
Yes.
to connect with you?
Virtue counseling. And then the other resource I would mention, if you are listening and you're like, oh my gosh, I would really love her services, but I don't live in one of those areas. Postpartum Support International's website keeps a directory of those of us who are trained in perinatal mental health and specialize. And so you can put in your zip code, you can put in your insurance, you can put in if you're looking for loss, postpartum anxiety, whatever it is, and find a practitioner that is trained in your area.
Okay. So I'm in Toronto and we have some Canadian listeners as well.
Yes.
Is that in
It's
Canada as
worldwide.
well? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
They
lovely.
also have free support groups.
Oh my God, amazing.
Mhm.
So I'll put that in the show notes so people can access it.
Yeah.
And as my last question before we head off, I always preface it by saying that there is such a profound imprint that takes place when a new life enters this 3D reality that we inhabit. And because of that oxytocin that we were talking about, it is typically an imprint of love and safety and trust. And unfortunately, sometimes that is an imprint of fear, mistrust, uncertainty, survival mode, protection mode for whatever reason. And that's okay. There's so much that we can do to repair. But if we go into this experience prepared, educated, and we have the support systems in place that we need, it can be a part of birthing a whole generation that is moving through the world from that place of love and safety and trust. And I'm taking a deep breath right now because when we're like at the time that we're recording this podcast is such a time of intensity on this
Yes.
planet, right? And so if we are going to change the world that we see, I do believe that a big part of it is imprinting love and safety and trust
Mhm.
onto the next generation. And so, with that being said, it's all my way of asking you, what would you like to imprint onto the ears of the listeners? It's a lot of, the people that you work with, new moms, parents preparing for birth, also women who want to birth a mission led business, use that womb space, creative life force energy to birth something beautiful into the world. What would you like to imprint onto their ears?
It's something I often share with my clients and my children. And my clients and children know that the data goes back and forth between them, and they both sets think it's hilarious. It's as simple as your brain is not your friend. Your brain is designed for survival, and it does not care if you enjoy it. So taking that moment to step back from it and that voice that says you can't, that's not your friend. It can go in the corner. And that's what I've taught my daughters. Pull it out, put it in the corner. And so sometimes we all need to put our brain in the corner. If it's not serving you, if it's not helping you feel love to yourself, that's not being your friend and it can go in the corner.
I'm sending you to the corner. I love that. I'm going to use that. I have two little girls too. I'm going to use that on them.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for this. This was,
Mhm.
again, such a necessary conversation, and I'm truly grateful. Thank you,
Um,
Jerusha.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Rewire for Birth. We hope you found our discussion inspiring and empowering. If you enjoyed the episode, we would greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help us reach more listeners and spread the message of holistic, empowered birth experiences. Feel free to mention what you loved about today's episode and how it helped you feel more prepared and confident about your birthing journey. Your feedback not only encourages us, but it helps other moms-to-be find our podcast and join this incredible community. Together, we can make a positive change in the world of birth. Until next time, stay empowered and keep rewiring for birth.